Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Jeff and the Rabbi. Well, Rabbi Freeman, today's episode I think is something necessary. Friday afternoon, I'm sure everybody knows, there was this horrific school shooting in Connecticut. 26 people dead, 20 of them children. It's the kind of thing that when we say this, we don't understand it. We can't explain it at all. This is impossible. How could anyone do something so horrible, so senseless, so brutal? And we're all wondering ourselves, how could this happen? I mean, what's going on? Is it because there's so many guns in society? Is it because society has changed? I mean, I was on Facebook right after this horrible thing happened, and you see, obviously you can tell from the progressive liberal people, always guns. If there wasn't guns, people wouldn't be dead. It's too many guns. We got to get rid of guns in our society. And you see the other side is saying, no, society has changed. Something's wrong. You know, our culture is shifted. Something's wrong with people that are doing this. And then, of course, going back to the liberal side, I remember I saw this one interesting quote. Obviously, somebody mockingly saying, "Well, how can your God allow this to happen in schools?" And then something I shared because I saw somebody put up. It was a shirt. You can see it on the Facebook there. It said, "Dear God, why do you allow so much violence in our schools?" Signed a concerned student. And then the answer back, "Dear concerned student, I'm not allowed in schools. God." I thought that was fairly appropriate too, so I shared that. So the debate is going on, and obviously, you know, when things like this happen in a society, the debate's going to go to the guns, or it's going to go to this versus that. What's going on? You know, in the 70s, we had a lot of killings. We had a lot of guns. I just don't recall, of course I was like 2, but I don't recall this senseless killing of innocent people. You're walking into a mall, into a school, into a office building, and kill senseless people that have nothing to do with your problems.
There were causes.
There
were times that there were causes.
They wanted to kill their family, they wanted to kill their sister, they wanted to kill whatever. I don't remember random killing of innocent people.
I was just thinking about that. I was thinking that I'd like to see some research done from 1945 to 1965. How many episodes like this were there? I bet you there was like few to none. We had 4. I know President Obama spoke yesterday, and he said this is the 4th type of episode like this he's had to speak at since he's become president. That's way, way too much.
We might have had 4 in the last 2 months. You know, it's not even reported as heavy anymore because
and it is clear that there are people who are around that pick up on this whole media frenzy, and they want to jump in. I think some guy called into some police station in Connecticut, and he said, you know, I'm going to finish up the job that he didn't finish. So obviously it inspires a certain element of society, and these people are coming out of the woodwork.
Was that element of society not here 30 years ago? Is it a new element?
Right. So, you know, this is what makes me laugh about the assault rifle ban.
Right.
Let's say we ban assault rifles. That means that all these people, that means that you're going to have a bunch of people walking around in society that if they could get a hold of an assault rifle would kill a classroom of little children.
Right.
But they won't because they can't get a hold of the rifle, which is nice.
That's the logic, right.
Does that make you comfortable that there are people walking around like that in society? That you've managed to take their gun away from them, but if you gave them a gun, they would go kill? I don't want to live in a society where there are people that, if they could get hold of a gun, would go slaughter a group of innocent little children.
Because, as I've had a discussion with someone else, it's just as easy to walk into a gas station and get a tank of gas and throw it into a school. I mean, it's not. I mean, yeah, the gun is. It's easy to blame the gun, but I mean, there's more horrific and easier ways of killing people.
Sure, you could drive a car, and next time you see the crossing guard and all the children walking, just drive up. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Who wants to live in a society where there are people like this? And the question we have to ask ourselves is, why are there people like this? Was there another time and place when there weren't people like this?
Right.
Or either maybe there were, but they weren't acting out, or there weren't at all. So what was going on? You know, what?
That's a good question.
What's different? What's happened now? And you know, when we look at our society, you get a lot of people, and it's an old theme, and we've talked about it before, but there is what's called a nihilistic society. Nihilistic society means it's intent on destruction, because on self-destruction even, because where's it going? This guy, what was he living for? Where was he going?
Right.
And in general, you could walk up to most people on the street and ask, What are you living for? What's your purpose? Once upon a time, I just said this to someone, that and repeat the story over and over again. My grandfather, my mother's father, he once had an opportunity to do something that was a little bit shady, and he could have made some good money on it.
Right.
And he was telling this story over, but he decided not to do it. So my father, his son-in-law, said to him, well, why didn't you do it? And it was good money there.
Right.
Cash. It was during the Depression and all that. He said, well, I felt that if something would go wrong and my name got implicated in it, it would be an embarrassment to my parents. So I didn't do
Interesting. Wow, I can't imagine that being said today. I can't even.
Can you think how bizarre that is? Like, because he didn't do it because it would disgrace his parents if it ever came up. There was a time and place when people lived their lives out of a sense of responsibility. Number one, duty. Duty. You know, they used to talk about duty to God, duty to country, duty to family. People lived, duty was, you have to do your duty. You have to sign up for the army. Duty was what life was all about. When people lived like that, so then their life had value, because if I did my duty today, then my life was valuable only and solely because I did my duty. Sometimes duty calls for you to give your life for your country. Sometimes duty calls for you to stay up a little bit longer at work because your duty is to support your children, or your duty to the boss or to the company or to the society, whatever. I can't throw trash in the street because I have a duty to be my civic responsibility. So duty and responsibility are very important things. We don't believe in that anymore.
Why don't we believe in that anymore?
The society turned is what happens with, and all those that have tuned into this show, if people still tune in, do you tune in?
You got to tune it in a little bit.
You tune
the little
in
dot goes.
anymore?
Yeah.
I don't know, click on? I don't know like what the words are. But,
Right.
you know, to all of those who are listening to this, it should not be a surprise, but when there's a society that is, when you live within a framework where you are a creation and you are privileged to be there, which means there's a God, and he created this world, and he set up this society, and we all have a role in it, and we all have a place, and therefore, why did he make us? Because we have a duty. What's our duty? Well, you might interpret it differently, but everyone understands. I have a duty to either be a good citizen or a duty to my family. I have responsibility to something that's above me. Our society does not believe in responsibility to something that's above you, because that something that's above you might tell you to do that you can't do something you want to do.
What you want to do. It makes it interesting. I was listening to a country song yesterday on the radio, comparing country living to city life, and one of the things the guy said in the song was, you know, I live in a town when a guy does something wrong, he's got to make it right. I don't think we have that anymore. Like in our main city living and smart, intelligent, you know, city living, we don't make it right anymore.
That's right. So when we start to be, once we really remove God from the equation, like your the guy in the shirt there? T-shirt there says that, you know, God's not allowed in the school. Well, when God's not allowed in the school, there is a sense of responsibility is removed, because the society is then turned. First to remove God. I'm not responsible to God. And after all, if you look at it, even the schools nowadays, the schools are here to teach me. The society is here to give to me.
Right.
I am supposed to engage in all of my pursuits and find my happiness. It's all about me. And let someone not tell me that you can't do that because it's not good for society. But what do you mean? It's what makes me happy.
See, and interesting, because, you know, the way I look at it, and I guess it's coming from the same way, we live in a society where there used to be, we used to live in a society where there were boundaries. Boundaries as in there is good, there is evil, there is right, there is wrong. You can't do this. If you do this, you're wrong. And I think, at least the way I look at it in a progressive society that we live in now, is boundaries are still there, but they continue to stretch. People call that progressing, and they continue to stretch, and they continue to stretch, and they continue to stretch. And at least the way I look at it, the problem is in any society, with boundaries or without, you're going to have people on the fringe. They're kind of crazy. They're kind of not there. But when your boundaries go out so far, and there's no rules, and I can't tell you this is wrong, and I can't tell you this is right. For maybe some of the normal people, okay, we'll live our lives like that. We might not live a life of God, but we might live a lot, but we're going to be saying normal people. We're not going to hurt somebody. But when you get so far, the people that are on the edges anyway are going to say, you know what? This world's not serving me correctly. I'm not getting what I want. Not only am I going to kill myself, but I might still kill everybody else as well, because why not? There's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong. So when your boundaries change, the people on the fringes, they go off the deep end.
You're absolutely right that there always was, probably always will be, people who are outside the pale. They're beyond the boundary.
Right.
However, the more you take a sense of purpose, of structure, of duty away from the common good, the more people you will find will be wandering around in life saying, what's it for? Why? Why am I alive? I'm not happy that I'm alive. Matter of fact, I'm going to kill myself. But, why should I kill myself? Well, because I don't want to do good. But there's no good to do. There's no duty to do. So I'm going to do evil. And then I'll just kill myself because I want to make a statement to the world. You know what I think about society? And you know what I think about life? I think it's worth nothing. So I'm going to go to the most sacred place that you can. Right. And I would suppose that everyone would say, atheist and not. I think a first grade classroom is probably about the most sacred place that you can imagine.
Right.
Right? By any definition. It embodies innocence, it embodies future hope, everything that's good. I mean, everything that's good that we could think of is embodied by first grade classroom. And I'm going to go there, and before I kill myself, I'm going to say, this is what I think about society. I think it's worthless, I think I'm worthless, and I'm going to kill them, and I'm going to kill me. And the more and more we teach that we are worthless, that life is worthless and purposeless, the more and more people we will find that actually, I really think some of these people are very perceptive. I think they're very spot on. And they're saying, I can't stand it. I can't stand to live a life where I don't know why I'm living. And I just can't stand it. And I'm going to blow myself out of here. Not just me. I'm going to make a statement to the whole society. Because if a guy goes in his bedroom, blows his brains up, I heard about 5 of those this morning, just before I even got out of bed. Right. No one even pays attention. So I'm going to make a statement. And of course, it's egged on by all the violence. Why do we have so much violence in society? Why do people play all those violent video games? Right. And why is all of it? Because they're feeling nihilistic. Nihilistic means I want to kill. I want to break things. I want to hurt things. Because there's no general sense of purpose beyond it. No sense of right and wrong and good and bad. And that if you're good and you follow the rules, that in itself is value. It's like my grandfather, I believe, walked away from the episode and he was rewarded. He didn't get the money that he could have made from doing being the accessory to the criminal behavior. He was rewarded instead by a sense that he had done something good. That he had turned down money because of the potential of disgrace of his family, and that was a matter of pride to him, and it gave him a sense of value in his life, and something that he even communicated to his children and grandchildren.
And you're saying that's not there. It's not prevalent in society anymore.
Nowadays, if someone turned it down, people say, you're a sucker.
No, you're an idiot.
How'd you pass up on that?
That's a good point.
How could you blow that? Why don't you just take the money and run? Nowadays, if a man has an opportunity, a man or a woman has an opportunity to commit adultery, and guaranteed no one will ever know, many people would tell you, if you don't do it, you're a fool.
Was it also then maybe added to that, well, you're also entitled to that. You're entitled to commit adultery, but you're also entitled to the happiness that these children and their families have. Why did I not get the happiness that this family and these kids have with them? So not only am I guess I should have got it. It's my right to have this happiness. I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied with my life. So I'm going to blow away everybody else who got it and I didn't get it. Could that have something to do with it as well?
I hate it. It makes me so angry. It makes me, the good things make me angry. I want to deface it. And I'm sure there's always been people like this. However, the more society is purposeless, the more of those people you will see. And it'll get to a point where you're going to have so much going on, and that is what's called chaos. And then the only thing that'll happen after that is a totalitarian regime will take over, and then they'll lock up every deviant. Pretty soon, any deviant in society, they're going to just come through the streets and lock you up and throw away the key. Because the regular other people, and people will give up many, many freedoms.
Just because of that.
Just because otherwise, all these freedoms I count, but I can't send my kid to school. What good are all the freedoms when we don't have any?
Well, let me give you the other side of the story. You're incorrect about what you say, the other side would say. What this is we're living in a society, one, where guns are available to everybody. Guns are available to everybody. This would not have happened if he couldn't have gotten a gun. He was going in and kill everybody. And we're in a society where we need to restrict people. We need to have a strong government that restricts people. So we need to take away all your guns. So only the government has guns. We need to take away that. We also got to take away, listen, some of the rights, some of the things that you think are the right thing to do. We're going to take away those rights.
Right.
Their argument was, what you want to do is you want to go into their schools and do probably what I say most progressives would think is the most evil thing that we can do on this planet. You want to talk about God in schools. You want to tell them the reason this happened is because God. I mean, I have people who told me this now. Well, you're going to try to say this is God, this is all about God. If they believed in God, this wouldn't happen.
Right.
That's way more evil than killing people.
Well, first of all, I think the argument is specious because I also want to restrict freedoms. I want to restrict freedoms, for example, against violence and pornography, because the violence in the pornography, and I lump those two together, because if you really look at it, most pornography is violent. Most pornography is abusing, demeaning, hurting someone is really dominating another person, and really hurting them, putting them down. Those things are harmful to other people. Pornography is like a gun, and it's hurting the viewer.
Says Rabbi Friedman.
And
how dare you take away my rights?
I'll take away, if you can take away a person's gun, and maybe you do need to do that in a practical sense. I think you need to get into the person's head and take away that which is motivating them to kill. But if I could agree that if we do need to take away the gun to prevent them from killing, we do need to take away the violence and the pornography, because that's hurting people and making them killers.
But the problem we have in societies now is who's going to make that determination? Rabbi Friedman thinks that what his grandfather was going to do is wrong. How dare he have the right to say that to me? He thinks pornography is wrong. I love pornography. How dare you have a right to tell that to me? So in our society today, it says, you have no right to tell me what's right and wrong. There's no black and white in society. There's gray. You might consider this wrong. I consider this right.
Right.
So you want to go in and you want to train our children, you want to go into our schools and tell us that what you say, because what's written in some book is right and everything else is wrong?
The bottom line is it might be time to bring back Leave It to Beaver.
Well, you might be right.
In other words, a society that had a certain structure, a society where people had to make it right. Whenever he got in trouble, he always had to resolve it, at least by the end of the half
definitely
hour.
in the Brady Bunch. You remember there was always a lesson at the end of the show. Always a lesson.
There had to be a lesson, and there had to be respect shown. There was recognition of people's desire to do evil, although the evil wasn't
not bad.
That hideous. But, he had a desire. They always had a desire to do something bad or crazy. And then when it didn't work out, you had to make the comeuppance. You had to, yes, sir, and say, excuse me, ma'am, I'm sorry, and I won't do that again. You get the call down, the father would call him in, and the father would be sitting in the chair.
With his suit on.
With his suit on. And then Beaver would have to sit there with his head bowed. He said, now you're not supposed to do that. And he'd have to be contrite. Well, we as a society might have to start to step back and say, wanton acts of violence, wanton acts of abuse of other people are no longer going to be shared. You say, well, that's not realistic. Yes, it's true. It's not realistic if you make that, if you decide that's not the reality. But you can create your reality.
Well, I mean, I got you. But here we live in a society today where we use the word progressive. Now, you just said degressive is what you said. We need to go back to Leave It to Beaver. What a progressive society says, no, we are always moving forward. We are always progressing. These people like Rabbi Freeman, he wants you to go back to the days of the stupid people back then. They're not that smart. We're so much smarter now. Right. It's 2012, almost 2013. Right. We're smarter than the people back at Leave It to Beaver. They didn't know anything. We're way smarter. He wants to degress. We want to progress.
Right, there's essential morals. And by the way, this is where the Torah comes in. This is where God and the Torah comes in. The people talk about, well, how can you read the Bible? It's such a violent book. And it's true. It is violent. Yep. People killed each other. I mean, Cain killed Abel.
Right.
Right? However, read every single story. Every single story. Cain did kill Abel. He was jealous of him. He did kill him. What's the next thing that happened?
He gets in trouble.
God came to him and he said, hey, what happened? Where's Abel? And he says, Cain, you got to repent. And he said, evil is crouching at the door, but you can overcome it. And Cain did however well he did. Maybe he didn't always do good. Sometimes there was a generation, they were horrible people. They were just evil all day long. You know what God did? He brought a flood.
Well,
there was a guy named Judah. Judah went off and had an affair with his own daughter-in-law, whom he thought he was a prostitute. What happened in the end? Judah said, she's right, I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
And on and on and on. King David took another man's wife. He repented over that. The child died. He repented over it. Every story, these are morality plays, and horrible things happen. There is adultery. There is idolatry. There is murder. There is stealing. There's all the bad things are in the Bible. However, there's also moral, there's a comeuppance. Right. There's a price that has to be paid. And therefore there's a balance. We live in a society where there is gratuitous violence. People can hurt other people for no reason whatsoever than just to be violent. You know, these Terminator movies and things like that. Right. What do they want to do? What's the goal? This evil person just wants to be evil.
But do you say that we shouldn't have Terminator movies? Or are you saying we shouldn't have video games where people shoot at everybody? Is that what you're saying?
That we should, as a society, say these things, and that if you're talking about impinging upon people's freedoms, yes, there's a certain measure of censorship. And so, well, then you get to censor everything.
But I'm not crazy. I can play a video game where I kill people.
It's the same thing as the gun. If you as a person can stomach limiting what guns the society has access to, then you should be able to stomach limiting what content, internet content, people have access to.
Okay, I'm with you, but then let me ask you another question to take the other side of the story now. This seems to happen a lot in America. It seems to happen a lot. Let's take Israel, for example. Now, that's a society where everyone has a gun. I mean, you don't go outside the house without a gun. Now, obviously, you have major problems with an enemy that wants to kill you. But you don't seem to have this kind of problem.
Right.
Is this the gun or is it the morals? Why is it different in Israel?
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's not guns. Matter of fact, I think if you look at all these, I don't know. I would like to find out and get some real hard evidence. I would bet you that all these killers, if you look at them, I bet you they don't have a history of hunting. You know, hunters all own guns.
Right, it's a good point.
Right? Hunters all own guns. They got all these guns. They're all killing all these animals all over the place.
They're not going into school, most of them, and killing people.
I don't think they're going to school. In other words, the people who own guns for a purpose,
just like
they don't
everything
use them wantonly.
Good point.
Now, there are people that don't have any purpose in life, and give them a gun, well, they're going to use it for no purpose, which means they're just going to walk into a school and wantonly kill people.
All right, so we get to this, then we get to, let's talk about the solution. When we go to the guns and solution, you know, some people would say, just the opposite, we need more guns. I mean, give you an example. When I went and visited in Israel, our guide Shruly, I think you met Shruly, did you not?
Shruly, yeah.
Shruly, great guy, told us a story when, horrible story, they were all on the road, they were at a busy intersection, and an Arab guy who was, you can tell he was very drugged up, got out with a machine gun and started shooting up a bus of kids. And it was a horrible situation, but within seconds, everybody in the intersection stopped, got out of their car with a gun, and killed the guy. Right. So obviously kids died. It was a horrible situation. But before it could get even worse, this guy was killed. Let me just say, if we had in a school situation where 5 teachers were trained on the use of firearms, and they were kept in a locked situation, But when they're trained, when a situation goes bad in school, you go get the gun. Would this situation have turned out differently?
Yeah, listen, if all the teachers would be trained.
Not all, maybe 5. Maybe you maybe have to go some psychological profiling, whatever. But
Right.
but my question is now that we can all have this discussion. Let's think of this: is the solution more guns? Is the solution God in school? What is the solution to this problem?
I don't believe the solution is more guns or less guns. The solution is to try to achieve a purpose-directed life where most people, where the bulk of society is living with a sense of purpose, where the bulk of society realizes that I can't be looking at pornography because it's demeaning to people. I can't be engaging in violent online activities and looking at violence because it degrades me as a human being. That we as a society say, this is disgusting. We won't have it. We don't want it around. I don't even care about censoring it. There should be a sense of moral revulsion against these type of things.
How?
You shouldn't be able to advertise it, to promote it. In the common square, you shouldn't be able to promote movies and ideas, things that that advertisements that are just absolutely degrading, and to move towards a sense of purpose and meaning. Ultimately, I don't think society, without turning back to God, is going to be able to find an overarching sense of purpose and meaning. And even all those people that hate God and don't want to bring God back in, they're going to have a choice. Either you live in chaos, you can have all your freedoms, but then the guy with the machine gun can have his freedoms too, or you're going to live a restricted sense of life that is modeled on a sense of purpose, which means there's certain things you can't do, which is not going to enable you to engage in all of your freedoms, but that will bring society back to an even keel, where there's a sense of overarching purpose.
Well, let me tell you what I think is going to happen, because I don't think it's going to happen the way you said it.
Me either.
Unfortunately, what's going to happen in this part of society that you're not going to infringe on my rights, you're not going to make my boundaries tighter. The problem is the gun. We're going to go after the NRA. We're going to do this because we can take more control over here. We're absolutely, as I said earlier, the biggest evil in these people's minds is God. God in schools is worse than guns in schools. Trust me, that's the worst. So I don't think what you say is going to happen. So, and because I don't know if the voices are going to be strong enough. You'll hear a voice here like you'll hear voices saying this, but I don't think it's going to be strong enough in our society to make that happen. So where do we go? How does it end? Because progressivism by nature means we progress, even though I don't believe in the term this way, not this way.
So it will end up with a totalitarian regime where a government will take over. They'll severely restrict the populace. They'll, of course, take away all their guns. It'll be a very obedient, I mean, in the Soviet era, I don't think you saw too many people doing wanton killings. And there'll be extreme restriction of personal liberties. And the society, the bulk of society will accept it because otherwise the kids can't go to school. Because otherwise it'll be so chaotic that you won't even be able to walk outside the door. So we'll accept that restriction, and they'll take it. And you can have a society like that. You can have a law-abiding atheistic society. It's just someone's going to have to be imposing law and order.
Right.
And that person or people that are imposing law and order will have to have absolute control over everyone else. I think that's what we're going to end up with, a totalitarian regime. Either it will be God will be the totalitarian regime,
right,
meaning everyone will accept a higher authority, or someone will impose authority. It's going to have to happen one way or another.
So do you think there is any chance, and if so, what could people do to go that way, to where people can turn back to good and evil, God, the Torah, and realize, yes, there are some things that are wrong and some things right. Is there a possibility that can happen? And if so, how?
So I think that if our society, and this is what I would promote as the solution, that our society should accept wholeheartedly people who ascribe to sense of duty to a higher good, to a common good. They should be re-enshrined in society. That we should start to teach our children about a sense of duty, that there are things that are greater than us, and that our society is greater than us, that our duty to our parents is greater than us, and that there is a creator, that we came from somewhere, and we're beholden to that. Ultimately, if we can't accept that message, that there's a creator, then everything else is really not going to work. Unless I can accept the bottom line that I was created, and therefore I owe, like it says in the Ten Commandments, I am Lord your God, and honor your parents. The only reason you honor Lord your parents is because I'm Lord your God.
Lord your God, right. Wow. So, I mean, I get your argument. I hope your argument can come true. I think that's going to be a tough one. In the meantime, I think we live in a pretty tough society, which is unfortunately progressing in the wrong direction. Will it change? Will it turn back?
Well,
I hope.
You know, all I can say is, let's look at the 50s and let's look at now. What were all the things that were wrong about the 50s? There was censorship.
Right.
People weren't allowed to pursue the jobs they wanted. Women really couldn't achieve a lot of things. They had to stay home. Society made you do lots of things.
Yep.
Okay, though you gave up a lot of freedoms. On the other hand, you got a lot of freedoms. I said this Shabbos at my table. When I was a little kid and I had to go to the synagogue, so if my father didn't go at the same time I did, so he went earlier and I went later. We lived 3 blocks from a synagogue. But yet one of those 3 blocks had to cross a major thoroughfare.
Right.
So when I was a little kid, my mother said to me every day before I left on the Sabbath to go to the synagogue, when you get to the big street, Plymouth Avenue, just wait there and ask an adult to cross you.
Right.
She said, ask an adult to cross you. And that meant I was supposed to stand there. When an adult came along, I'd say, will you cross the street? And an adult would.
Right, well.
That means a stranger, an adult. She would say, ask an adult.
Wow.
And I would just say, I would initiate a conversation with a stranger, and generally the adult would say, sure. And they'd walk across the street.
Wow.
Sometimes they would continue on the other side of the street. Sometimes they'd walk back across, because they were adults, and adults are good.
That's what adults do to children.
That's what adults do. And I never saw, nothing bad ever happened to me. Lived a nice, healthy childhood, and other children did the same. That's the way the society was I grew up in. Now, my mother was a housewife. You know what? She was probably restricted because she couldn't become certain things that she wanted to do.
Right, right.
On the other hand, she lost those freedoms. She had the freedom of knowing that she could send her kid out in the street and said, ask an adult.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So I think the bottom line here is, for the people listening, I think everybody needs to be having this discussion, and I think this was a good one. You don't have to agree with everything Rabbi Friedman said or anything I said, but I think that...
If you don't agree with me, you're an idiot. Right?
But beside the fact that you're dumb, I guess the most important thing everybody should take from this thing is if you can at least leave from this with the one understanding that you might not agree, but at least you know that there is something greater than you.
That's right.
And more important than you, and then maybe that would be a good start.
Right.
To get this on the right direction.
Otherwise, I don't see how people are ever going to respect first graders unless we realize that they are really creations, they're children of God. If I think I'm valueless, then why does that child have any more value than me?
That's a good point.
But if I have value, inherent value, then the child also has inherent value.
Very good point. All right, well, I think this was a good, healthy discussion. And we'll be back next week, or maybe not next week, because it's holidays are coming.
Yeah, probably not, right?
And we'll be back soon with another great episode of Jeff and the Rabbi.
Yeah.